Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Badass Confidence Coach. Today, Tim and I are starting a series called The Things That We Don't Talk About. We're going to talk about it. So this was a great idea that actually our podcast manager gave us. And I just thought, yeah, and that's how we are. That's how we roll. We're the type of people and the family that does talk about the things that so many people don't and won't talk about. And their families are pretty much an open book. I know because other friends and family members, extended family members have said, our family doesn't talk like you guys do. I'm like, well, I guess that's having having a therapist in the family.
Yeah, some people would consider it to be awkward conversations. I have somebody at work because she enjoys being awkward and she openly admits it. I will intentionally come up with some awkward statement to her, and everybody around her and me that hears us was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that out loud. Like, I'm like, hey,
but you know what? I think people secretly are like, I'm kind of like that you're
talking. Of course they do.
I kind of like that you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is something that I have thought before, but I've never said out loud or I've never heard a conversation around it. Right?
Yeah.
I've always been the type of person who's like, well, I know you're thinking it. I know we're all thinking it. Let's just say it.
Yeah. I came up to her last week. It was her, me, and somebody else standing at the desk. And I was like, I just walked up like, hey, good morning, guys. I'm like, hey, have you put on a few pounds? You look a little happy.
Tim.
She's like, well, and she's expecting me to say that, but the third person wasn't.
Wait. Excuse me. What? I thought you could say she's pregnant.
No. She was expecting me to come up with some awkward.
Because you tease her all the time.
We always say awkward things to make it like anybody else would be so uncomfortable with that. And there was a third person there who was like, I could see in her face. She's like,
yeah, because that.
Oh my gosh! Did you just say that out
loud? I can't believe you said that. I don't even know if I would joke about that.
Anyways,
coming from the eating disordered world, that's taboo. Like,
I know.
Okay, all right.
Anyways,
let's go on. Okay, so we're doing this series. It's 10 episodes, you all. So I'm doing my research. I'm talking to people, and we're going to get into this. And we're going to start with the beginning of life for your child. We're talking about postpartum rage and silent shame. And I think this is something that's not talked about. So we're going to get into it. Okay, so this isn't just postpartum depression. I think that that's socially safe to talk about postpartum anxiety. And it's a very legit and serious disorder for women in those early postpartum phases after having had a baby. But this is about rage, okay, and how we often feel, for those of us who've been through this, that we can't express it. And it goes underground and we push it down and it moves into a shame about who we are as a person that we even feel this way because it's the most happy, wonderful, joyous time in our lives. Why are you not just so grateful and happy and just bliss with this newborn? Well, that's not the case for many, many women.
And they don't necessarily express it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It's possible that they just kind of absorb it inside and keep it there.
I remember when I had Samantha, and this is 30 years ago, and I was so excited. I got pregnant on purpose. We wanted to start a family and very happily pregnant I was sick the first 3 months, but very happily pregnant. I wanted pregnancy. I worked in maternal and child health. I was around babies all the time. I totally got the bug working in pediatrics. And I don't even know if you could do this today, but when we were slow, I would help the nurses because we had so many babies to feed, or they'd have an NG tube and I would give them a bottle and they'd have an NG tube going in. But I spent so much of my time holding babies and feeding babies when I had the time and the nurses were understaffed and working in a neonatal intensive care unit and just being around all kinds of preemies. And I was so excited, so happy, and so thought through this part of my life. And then when Samantha was born, and when I had the baby in postpartum, so those are the floors I worked on, it was a little overwhelming because they treated me like a celebrity. One of the art therapists put a massive poster board on my door saying, Anna's had the baby. It was a reception that was 3 days long. Everybody of all the shifts was coming through NICU, labor and delivery, postpartum, the graduate nursery that was one step up from the NICU, the antepartum unit, which was the high-risk hospitalized patients, the people in the social work department, the pediatric unit, and the pediatric intensive care unit all came through. So I had a C-section, and even though it was wonderful, I never got to rest. And I was exhausted. So when I got home 3 days after the C-section with this newborn and my husband, my first husband, and my mother-in-law, I think it was at the time, or my mom or my mother-in-law, I was wiped out. And I had just turned 26, like by a week. Can you imagine how young I was and how exhausted I was? Because I really needed that time just for quiet, to really start to regulate my emotions. And I was in this like high, this reception mode, but I was probably looking back, I was dysregulated emotionally and psychologically. My nervous system was dysregulated. It was a setup for me because I went into a bad depression,
Yeah.
bad postpartum depression. And I think that, and I know that it's something that many of us women have shame around, that you can't talk about it. There's something wrong, even though I knew. I was on a postpartum depression team. We were doing like psychoeducation with the staff around postpartum depression. It was a cohort that I was in. I knew in my head, I had the knowledge. And it was some weird thing that was going on in my mind that because it happened to me, I ought to have been above it. And I can't believe this is happening to me. And I can't
Like
talk
you
about it.
should know better.
I should know better.
Yeah.
As if I could control it.
Right.
But it's weird what your mind does to you. I mean, if anybody who's gone through a clinical depression or a severe anxiety, you know what I'm talking about, or an eating disorder. You know what I'm talking about. It's like, I shouldn't be this way, but I am this way, and there's shame around it, and I am this way. It's circular reasoning or circular thinking, which can spiral down. So I want to talk a little bit about where the data is now, because that was 30 years ago, right? And let's talk about the 2020s and on, all right? I'm going to share with you a little bit of the research of what's happening today, of what we know. Intense anger is pretty common. And this is something that I'm telling you, I don't know many people talk about this. A 2022 Canadian cross-sectional survey of 278 mothers showed that 31% scored in the 90th, 31% scored in the 90th percentile for anger at 6 to 12 months postpartum. 26% screened positive for depression, and 52% rated their own sleep as air quote poor. These are big numbers. So 26% were screened positive for depression. That's 1/4 of all women that were in this study in 2022, 278 mothers, a quarter of them were depressed. 50, more than half had terrible sleep, which is going to affect your mood. And 31%, that's a third, are in the 90th percentile for anger at 6 to 12 months.
It's a long time
That's
out.
big.
It sounds like
Big.
a long time out to me anyways.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
And then in 2022, a longitudinal study. A longitudinal study means a study that you watch the people in the study for years, like a 2, 5, 10-year study in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology and Neonatal Nursing. This is a study that they did. 21% of mothers fell into the moderate, stable, or high decreasing anger groups from pregnancy through 2 months postpartum. So higher anger was linked with worse depression, anxiety, and insomnia. So the worse your depression was, your anxiety, and you weren't sleeping, the higher your levels of depression. I'm just going through quickly because I want you to see that this is, I don't think you all don't believe it's not legitimate, but they're studying this,
Right.
which is good. Rage often rides shotgun with depression. So they hang out together, right? 2024 study that was done, it was a cohort, American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, found that 16.4% of the people in the study met the EPDS threshold, which is more than 13 for postpartum depression at 2 months. People met the criteria for a postpartum depression diagnosis, 16.4%. And those are people who they had it, but they hadn't been diagnosed, or maybe they hadn't seen a psychiatrist or seen their primary care or their gynae postpartum to get this diagnosis. But when they were studied, they found, oh, wow, 16% of these people actually have a diagnosis.
Like you would have fallen into that camp.
Yeah, and they actually have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
They may not have been treated because they may not have talked about it when they went for the postpartum checkups with their gynecologist. And I know they've gotten a lot better about asking about psychological symptoms, mood-related symptoms postpartum. But I think when it comes to anger and it comes to rage, patients, i.e. moms, are not talking about it.
Is that worse? Is it worse to push it down? Do you think?
You think? That's what we're talking about.
But I mean, like eventually
So what do you do if you don't push it down, Tim?
it's going to explode at some point. It almost has to.
Right.
And then who's going to be sadly, the one that gets taken out on?
What does rage mean? It means different things for different people. Maybe it means the mom goes like batshit crazy, screaming and yelling. That would be
Sure.
the best thing, I think. But at least you would know, wow, there's something really going on here. And if you have a partner or a spouse, that person may be like, whoa, 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 this is not her. This is not how she really is. Or yeah, she's got a temper and she can get mad, but this is another level.
Sure.
I would get that looked at. And if you were, the partner, the wife, or the husband, don't just be like, oh, well, that's just her right now. No, 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 no. If you see anger, rage, which is sort of next level, I say get it checked out.
Yeah.
I say call the OB-GYN that treated your partner, your wife, Or I would say we need to look into something more here, maybe seek someone in the mental health field. Okay.
Which of those is more common? That the spouse is the one that takes action or mom?
Mom. And I think it's very uncommon that the spouse takes action. Because I think the spouse is dealing with their own thing and the partner, and they don't know what they don't know either. They don't
Yeah.
know what's normal and not normal. Not normal. We've all heard of the postpartum, the baby blues. We've heard of postpartum depression. How many of us have seen these very severe cases that make headline news across the nation? The case of that woman, I did an episode on this probably, was it 2, 3 years ago, about that woman who had a postpartum psychosis and she tried to kill her 3 kids
Yeah.
and herself, and she ended up, it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
a horrible story.
Yeah.
She killed the 2 and she's in jail, I think, for life, but that was in the Boston area. So we hear about that. She was severely, severely depressed, and that's a whole other conversation. And that's not what I'm talking about here. That's more of psychiatric. That's more of, I think, a psychosis. We're not talking about the fact that we feel this real anger and rage about what's happened in our lives, because it's not supposed to be that way. We're not supposed to feel that way. So
Supposed to be happy, right? Like
there you go.
This is supposed to be
There
the
you
happy
go.
time right now.
And I can imagine you saying that to me. I
Yeah.
can imagine if it was you, you'd be like, you're supposed to be happy, because you just don't get it, because your hormones haven't been affected. You just don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think men, or if you've never had a child, you just don't get it.
Yeah.
And if you've had a child and maybe you'd had a different experience and you haven't had the hormone fluctuations and you haven't had maybe a history of a mood disorder, because if you have a history of a mood disorder, anxiety disorder, you have to be careful when you're pregnant that you could go into that the same degree or maybe a higher degree because of the hormone fluctuations postpartum. So those people, for me, I would flag myself. I would flag a client who has a history and is pregnant. Let's talk about this postpartum. I think that's so important, just to start talking about this, and let's get a little bit of a plan together.
Yeah.
A little bit, meaning what's step 1, what's step 2. Someone's got to be keeping an eye on you.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Because I got to imagine both mom and dad must have moments where they're like, oh, this is going to pass, right?
Yes.
Like, we'll be okay. We need a little bit of time.
That happened to me. I thought it. And my husband at the time, I remember him saying to me, you're strong. You'll get through this.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't feel strong and I didn't feel like I'd get through it. And I had a lot of shame because I was a therapist and I worked in maternal and child health, like I said, that I was going through it. My parents were visiting. My father was a doctor, although he was an orthopedic, but he was a doctor. And he and my mother, she told me later, were like whispering amongst themselves, staying with us, like, what's up with her? I mean, I was so dramatically different. I was so dramatically depressed and exhausted. My mother had 8 children and she had never gone through what I was going through. She never had a postpartum depression. She had the blues. And she had twins when she was 20. I think she was like 27, and she had twins. And in those days, they did ultrasounds, and she didn't know she was pregnant with twins until the second baby came out in the delivery room. So she went through a period in a new town with now 4 children, 27 years old, with 2 babies, not just one. So she didn't have 3 kids, she had 4 kids. And she went through the blues. And she said that was very hard, but she doesn't ever speak of it the way she saw me, because she says, I went through it, but you were different. So I was another level, but they didn't tell me at the time that they were visiting me. They're whispering amongst themselves, which was really the worst thing that they could have done. I mean, hindsight's 2020, that they were worried about me. But what my mom and my dad and my husband at the time said, she's strong. She's a strong woman. She'll get out of this. She'll come out of it. It's just the blues. Well, it wasn't just the blues, because for me, it lasted for 6 months. It was pretty bad.
I wonder, had your mom or dad said something, would it have sparked some type of action at the time?
Yes. So this is going back, and this is the ideal situation. My husband at the time maybe could have called people down in maternal and child health. My colleague, social worker Margaret, she was my work wife. She and I were the 2 people in maternal and child health. She could have been called and she would have known immediately what to do to help me. They just didn't think to do it. And I didn't have the bandwidth and the emotional energy or even the thought to tell them how to take care of me. I needed somebody to know how to take care of me, and nobody knew how to take care of me. We were also focused on the baby. I was nursing and trying to take care of this baby. I didn't know how to take care of me. And I will say, which I'm a little embarrassed even now to talk about it, I had a stigma at that time about taking an antidepressant, because at that time, 30 years ago, I didn't think I could, because we didn't know how much it affected the breast milk. And today we know there's certain antidepressants you can take, which I probably should have been on. And it was also the stigma around, I was so happy for this pregnancy. I was so happy to have this baby. And now I feel the opposite, and I have shame around it. It ended up being anger later. I wouldn't say so much rage, but you don't need that. You don't need an antidepressant. Really, it's that bad, Anna? It was what I would tell myself, which was the worst thing, right? So, here's the key takeaway for all of you is that rage is not a fringe symptom. Really important. It's not some fringe symptom that not many people have. It's a masked component of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. PMAD is what they call it. So it is a masked component of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders that up to 1/3 of new mothers feel, yet seldom name it. Really, really important. And why does it stay underground? So we're talking about the cultural script of the air quote gentle mother. That's what you and I have been talking about really this whole time, but not really naming it. The gentle mother, the scenes, the artists of the mother holding her newborn at the bosom, this bucolic scene that you're in total bliss. No, you're not in total bliss when you've had a baby. How many people? I mean, yes, there are people, and that's wonderful. But I'd say most people are like, oh my God, what do I do? My whole genitalia is coming out. I have 20 extra pounds on me. I'm exhausted. My boobs are killing and the baby won't latch. This is awful, and screaming. And it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I always said this, and I don't know anybody, woman who hasn't said this. Why do they talk about trimesters? First trimester, second trimester, third trimester. Why are there not quads? Why are we talking more about the fourth part, the quadmester, when that baby's born, the 3 months after the baby's born? And for many of us, it lasts longer. That this is really, really hard. And as many women have told me over the years, I would take being pregnant any day over that first 3 months of having a newborn. I've tried to breastfeed and not getting any sleep, and your whole life is taken from you. This little tiny peanut body baby comes into your world and says, I'm in charge now. You can forget the sleep. You can forget your routine. You're not at work anymore.
So true.
So true, right?
Yeah.
I'm
so
in charge.
True. Yeah.
And everybody goes around. You have to. That's what you're doing. You're taking care of a newborn that you love, but you don't always feel like you love it.
Yeah.
I'm just telling him or her.
And just
don't take that personally.
Just think about the setup, those 9 months. There's so much happiness, right? Like grandparents to be are super happy. Your siblings are super happy. There's baby showers at work.
And
There's
decorating rooms.
all kinds of stuff.
Getting cribs,
right?
And going and looking for strollers. You spend a Saturday afternoon looking at strollers.
Yeah.
It's like your wedding.
It's almost
an event.
Too much fun.
It's an event.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're so excited.
Yeah.
But little does anybody tell you that your hormones are going to be going wackadoodle inside you.
Yeah. The visual is like you're going up this mountain of happiness and you get all the way to the top, and then your baby is born. And then what do? Are you taking the easy, nice sloping path down, or are you jumping off the edge? What's happening?
Right. So now I had this with my first. I didn't have it with my second or my third. I didn't have it because I put into place with number 2 what I would do if I saw any of these signs or symptoms coming up. And I talked openly about it with my husband, and I just had a plan together because I went back to work and I really realized what I had gone through. So it didn't happen. And I was prepared, but it's also different having a second child. It was just so very different for me. Although that birth experience was terrible and I was traumatized by my birth experience, which I don't know if we have time to get into today. It was you've heard me talk about it many times with Marissa. 48 hours of labor to end up trying to do VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean, ending up with a cesarean section after 48 hours and 3+ hours of pushing. It was terrible. It was at the hospital I worked at, the same place I knew everybody. Well, let me tell you, it was terrible. So I was traumatized, and my dad was so upset about what had happened to me. He's like, you should write a letter to the president. But I was exhausted and I never wrote the letter. But I do kick myself, hindsight being 2020. I really do wish that I had let the director of OB-GYN and the president of the hospital let them know what had happened to me, because it's such a terrible experience. And I won't get into it here. But I wasn't depressed after because I'd taken care of myself, and it was also my second kid. So why all this stays underground? So
can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
And you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but so when you went back to work after Sam, all of these different teams had visited you and talked to you and had been happy with you. And also there would have been others that have been closer to you that would probably know that you went through some serious garbage after. Did that ever come up? Did you ever have off the record conversations with anybody at work after you went back to work?
Yeah. Going back to work for me 3 months postpartum was the best thing I ever did. I needed it. I needed that part of my identity back, because what had also happened to me, which was really a mind screw, was I did not realize how much having a baby was going to change my identity. And I wasn't ready at just turning 26. I wasn't ready for that. I wanted to have a child, but I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom at that point. I was 2 years out of graduate school and had worked very hard for my graduate degree and loved what I did, loved it. And those people in that hospital in maternal and child health, they were my family. That was my work family, and they held a very important role and place in my life. And I had no friends outside of work. We had just moved to a new community outside of Chicago in Oak Park, Illinois. And I knew no one. I wasn't a stay-at-home mom. There was a big stay-at-home mom community. I just wasn't ready for that. I wanted to have a child. I wanted to start a family, but I wasn't ready to give up my identity as a social worker, a therapist. So I went back to work, didn't talk about it right away, but then there were a bunch of us, and I think I talked about it a few episodes ago in a different context. There were a bunch of us who'd all had babies at the same time. We started a weekly mom's lunch. And it was there that I realized that, number one, nobody had postpartum depression. And I had actually a clinical diagnosis because they all had blues and had some struggles, but nobody was at the depth to which I was. I talk about it and they look at me like, no, I didn't feel that way. No, I didn't have that.
Interesting.
I knew I had something that was another level than all the rest of them. My older sister had, I think, 2 kids at that point. She did not have the feelings I had. She went through the blues. So I realized, oh, this is different. Nobody else has had this that I'm talking to. As I started to open up and started to get more comfortable, and this is probably 4, 5, 6, 7 to 12 months postpartum. So mind you, everybody, I also worked in child abuse. So on those floors, I was the director of suspected child abuse and neglect. I was the chairperson of that team. So I had to follow up on all the child abuse reported cases to DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services in Chicago. So even if I didn't see the case and I didn't report on it, I had to follow up on all of them throughout the hospital. So usually it was in pediatrics, it was in the peds ICU, it was in the neonatal unit because I was calling on abuse and neglect on the drug babies. So the cocaine babies, the heroin babies, that was considered abuse. So I was calling on those. And I was following up on the cases that sometimes came up to other units, but really it was the emergency room. So I was following up on all of this and I would see these cases. Now, mind you, I'm going to say something here that's what we saw in child abuse. I saw cases of abuse. I saw cases where these parents of newborns, mild to pretty severe abuse of newborns. After I'd had Samantha and I would look at these patients, I thought to myself, oh, the only difference between me and my thoughts in those first 3 months and what they did was that I wasn't addicted to drugs. I wasn't on heroin. I wasn't on meth. I wasn't on whatever the drug was. And I didn't throw my baby out the window.
Yeah.
Or I didn't shake my baby or do these things because I had the impulse control not to do that because I wasn't on anything.
Yeah.
And I started talking about that in this group and other people were like secretly. So I was always the one who talked about things that nobody ever wanted to talk about because that's just how I am. And that's what we're doing here. That's how I roll. And they were like sheepishly looking at me and I knew, and they were sort of nodding. And then we started speaking openly about it that, yeah, these are thoughts we've all had. And I said, yeah, you all. And the only difference between us and them is that we have impulse control. We know not to do that. And I know I would never throw my kid out the window, but to say I felt like it, and the validation I got was I was in church and I was talking to this mom. She had like 4 kids. She was lovely and it was my first. She was very outgoing, very friendly, and we would hang out socially. And I said to her, oh, I felt this way. She goes, oh, Anna. She was like, you know how many times I felt that way? She's like, I felt that way so many times. And it was just her complete raw vulnerability and honesty with me was so very helpful. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm not the only one. Of course, I would never do anything, but you've thought that too? And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, of course. She's like, it's hard. They're driving you crazy. She goes, remember, you've had no sleep. And I'm like, okay, I'm normal.
Nice.
So that was very helpful.
I mean, I think it's helpful to hear that because I'm kind of wondering, you got me thinking now, like, and it's not a handbook, but where's the handbook? Like, where's the coaching pre-birth? There are going to be things that are going to come up for you as a new mom inside of your head. I think we're not
talking about it enough.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that this is another reason why it's staying underground for so many of us is that we're not talking about it enough. And my heart goes out to you if you don't have support, because I think that even though you may not be talking about when you go to a dark place, which is rage of your thoughts, which I do think it's important to talk about, because so get it out in the open. Shame can't live in the light. So we're talking about rage and shame. Shame lives in darkness, everyone. And I think you all know this. Shame lives in darkness. So talk about these feelings. And now you've gotten it out. It's not just stewing inside you. You've gotten it out. You've said it. You've put it out to the universe. Okay, you said it.
Yeah.
And their shame starts to dissipate because now it's in the light. Talk about the way you feel. But I don't think we're doing it enough. I think that something that would really is very helpful is at least you got to have support. You got to have a mom, your partner's somebody there. Your partner usually is there with you, right? But you need more than one person. I'd say have a mom, have a mother-in-law, have an aunt, Hire somebody, hire a caregiver. Many people are doing this today, but you have to have the money to do this. People are hiring night nurses. They're not cheap. So for those of you who are in the higher economic status, you can afford that. And if you can afford it, do it. I would get a night nurse. I would get somebody there to help because you need your sleep. That's one of the most important things here. The AG1 you've heard me talking about for so long just went through a major upgrade. AG1's Next Gen is here. So what is Next Gen? It is a daily health drink clinically shown to support gut health and close common nutrient gaps, even in the healthiest of eaters. With 5 new probiotic strains and additional vitamins and minerals, AG1 Next Gen represents the biggest step forward for daily foundational nutrition. 1 scoop in the morning with 8 to 12 ounces of cold water adds up to whole body health from vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and whole food sourced ingredients. AG1's Next Gen is now one of the most clinically backed greens powders. Can you believe it? They went above and beyond the industry standard in testing and have made a great product even better. AG1, it's been a game changer for me for my mornings. It sets the tone for my day, helps me feel my best, and I genuinely look forward to drinking it in the morning. Now, clinically backed with an advanced formula, this is a perfect time to try AG1 if you haven't already. I've been drinking AG1 for more than 5 years now, and I'm so happy that I am partnering with them. So subscribe today to get the Next Gen of AG1. If you use my link, you're also going to get a free bottle of AG D3K2, an AG1 welcome kit, and 5 of the upgraded AG1 travel packs with your first order. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/Anna to get started with AG1's Next Gen and notice the benefits for yourself. That's drinkag1.com/Anna. I could talk about this for another 30 minutes, and we don't have time. Before I move into the next phase, please reach out to me. If you are looking for coaching, here's what you do. You email me hello@annamarcolene.com and let's get on a call together. That's how you get in touch with me. That's how you work with me. Okay. So let's see if we're a good fit for one another, and I'll get you on the calendar. We'll get going. All right. So I want to say that. So, and if you're in Illinois and you're looking for therapy, email me for that as well. All right. And let's get started. Let's get this conversation going and let's get you the help that you need. Okay. Really important. So I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. It's very simple. hello@annamarcolene.com. It's me that you're getting. Okay. And sometimes my assistant Blake is there and he'll get it too, but we're talking all the time. You know that you're getting to me. And this is only for people who are looking for coaching and looking for therapy, okay? If you're looking to come on the podcast and you're a podcast pitcher, you're going to get Blake. Then that's a whole other system. But if you're looking for services, you're getting me, okay? All
Perfect.
Right. Okay, so why does it stand your ground? We've talked about the cultural script of the gentle mother. There are screening blind spots, and this has to change. So the standard screens that are going on now, postpartum, they really look at mom's irritation, and they're not looking for high heat rage. That's very different. And it's air quotes safer for you to say, well, yeah, I'm irritated when you're at your postpartum visit versus telling your doctor, I'm like so angry and I have this rage, it's this high heat. We don't say that.
Yeah.
We just don't say that.
Yeah.
We think it, but we don't say it, right? So, and clinicians and doctors are rarely directly asking patients that. And if you're in therapy, we're seeing a less and less postpartum you're with your therapist. Some are, but people are taking breaks. Usually in the postpartum period, they're going away from their therapist during that time, or maybe they're not in coaching anymore. That's probably when you need to be in therapy talking to your therapist. So your therapist can say, hey, what's really going on here? How are you really doing? Right?
I mean, so think about it. If the professionals are not asking that question.
I'm not talking about irritation. I'm talking about your anger and your rage.
Yeah. Then the only one that really knows what's going on is yourself and possibly your spouse.
Possibly.
Right? Possibly your spouse.
Right. Okay. So why also it goes underground is because we know about the postpartum blues. We know that there's hormone changes, but postpartum estrogen and progesterone totally crash. This is what happened to me, which is, I understood this, but not for many, many, many months later. So you got the progesterone estrogen crash as the baby has come out of you. Your body's trying to get back to normal. Plus you've got this fragmented sleep. more than 50% of postpartum moms are reporting, air quote, poor sleep. So this is going to reduce your ability to regulate your emotions. So your bandwidth for emotion regulation that you had before you were pregnant and even in your pregnancy has gone way down. So society, like I just said, it frames irritability and certainly frames rage as a personality flaw rather than a biological signal. You have to understand that this is not a personality flaw on your part. It's a biological signal that something is going on. If you feel anger and you feel rage, that's a ding, 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 ding. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. You got to go see somebody about that. Okay. It's not you. It's what's going on inside your body.
It's bigger than you.
There's no there's no room for judgment here. This is not about judgment. Yeah, it's exactly. And I think that postpartum rage, it's only entered the parenting blogs in the last 10 years, if that. And I think that a lot of times we do move into this place of judgment and new moms think, I suck at this. I'm bad at coping. No, you're not bad at coping. You don't suck at this. You've got all kinds of physiological changes going on inside of you. And your hormones are out of whack.
Think about everything that's new that's happening at the exact same time. It's like overwhelming to even make a list of those things.
Right.
That's wild.
Right. Let's talk about, first thing you got to do is you got to stabilize your nervous system and your hormones. What are some things you can do? Number one, I'd say you got to get your sleep. Try to get 4 to 5 hours of continuous uninterrupted sleep. And this is what I did with my second. It was game changing. So have your partner, have your mom, have the person you've hired. That's why a night nurse is wonderful. If you're nursing, then maybe you pump so someone can give that bottle. So if it's every 3 to 4 hours, and someone's giving a bottle during that time, now look, you're getting 6 hours of sleep. That can really be the difference maker for most of you. Really, it's the sleep. It is the sleep. Okay. Yeah. So for many, many people, when you are feeling overwhelmed, I want you to take the vagal break, is what we call it, the 4-7-8 breathing, breath and extended exhale. You're going to breathe. I've done this before. So you breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more at the top, 2 more sips. And I do it that way. And you can think of it as like eight breaths out. Okay. Do that 4 times. When you feel like I'm going to lose it here, you know, or that baby is screaming, because some of you may be listening to this. Like, I haven't had that experience. I had a really good baby. I had a really chill baby and didn't cry very much. Some of you are like, no, I had it. And even if you didn't have a baby who was colicky, is it like 10xing all of this? My nephew was colicky. Oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for my sister and brother-in-law at that time. I mean, those 2 people, their hair was like coming out of their heads. That was a really, really hard time for them. It was months and months of it. But you haven't all had that experience. Maybe you've just had the experience of, this just baby cries and this is very hard for me. Everything I said about hormones. So you're going to take that breath, take that body breath. It changes your physiology. One thing you got to do is, if you're not eating properly, your blood sugar is going to amplify your irritability and your anger. Make sure that you're really hydrating. And those who are nursing, they really do preach this to all of you, and they really hit it home with hydrate. You have to hydrate, right, for your milk supply. But it's also really important that you have a protein-filled snack. I would have that with every time you're feeding or you're pumping. Make sure you plan a snack, or have your mom or your partner or your husband, your wife, plan that snack for you, that you're having a little snack when you're eating. Okay, really, really important for good nutrition and hydration. Please, if you feel like this is something that's really out of the norm, and I probably should have done this. My dad made this comment and I didn't follow up on it. Get a checkup. Go back and see the doctor. If it's 8 weeks or 12 weeks later and you're still not feeling well, go get a thyroid dysfunction test. You could have anemia. You could have all kinds of things that could be underlying this anger. For many, many people, like a family member of mine, she has a mood disorder. She's dealt with depression her whole life. When she got pregnant, she became very depressed. Her mood would slide down, and it was really bad postpartum. And she tried to do it without meds, and she was just a mess. And finally, with one of her pregnancies, she went back on a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Game changing for her mood in her pregnancy and postpartum. So some of you may need to be on an SSRI. No shame in your game. This is not about shame. And I'm not a doctor. So remember, I'm not a doctor here. You need to talk, all of you need to talk to your own doctor about how to get help with all this. So there's a fast acting 14-day course, FDA approved. It's called zuranolone for severe postpartum depression. But you need to see your doctor. You need to maybe see a psychiatrist. You need to get a diagnosis. And they're the ones who are going to treat you. I'm not a doctor. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your life coach. But these are just recommendations for you to take this episode and go into your life and get the help that you need. Okay. We're going to have to end this because this is going on and on. But I want to tell you, the most important thing is your sleep and you got to get a village of support around you. It could be lengthier, but get the people around you, your partner, get family members to come in, have them take shifts. And I would plan this before the baby is born, because once the baby is born, you're not going to be able to do any of this because you're just going to be completely exhausted and taken up with the baby.
Yeah.
I would plan this ahead of time, and I would think to myself, I may not need you. I may not tell them that, but I may think, I may not need you.
You're on the list.
What can you do? How can I help?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it's like, I don't need advice from you. I actually don't even need meals. I need someone to help take the baby so I can sleep. That's the most important thing. Or maybe you do need meals. The number one thing is, don't give people advice. Everybody's different. We don't want your advice. And we're all different.
That's a bad idea.
Even my nephew's wife, I mean, she just had a baby, and it's like, I'm not going to give her advice. It's also 2025. They're doing things differently. They're reading the books of today versus what I read 20, 25 years ago, and respect that.
Yeah.
But what can I do to help you? But if I was the pregnant mom today, I would have a schedule around people who could help and just come and be here and be with the baby so I can go take a nap, or I can go for a walk outside for 15 minutes.
Yeah. So I was going to say something too with our niece too. Shout out to her. I talked to her. We get to see them occasionally. So I was talking to her, whatever, last time we saw her. The one thing that was important to her and is helpful to her is like getting back into some things that are routine for her.
Yes.
Whether that's a little bit of fitness, or it's a little bit of quiet time, or it's whatever it is. And for her, it's all kinds of things. But like, that's one thing that's like a constant that you want to get back, and you want to get that back as quick as you can, because that makes you feel not
that you can
normal, regular, but like,
but you can go to the store, you can go to your old Pilates studio.
Like, I'm back in the game slightly.
Yes, you can take a class. Yeah. You're only going to be gone for 2 to 3 hours, but that's fine. That's usually all the time.
Like, I'm on my way.
Yeah, and the baby will be fine. And God forbid, let's have enough time, the baby won't be hungry. And if it is, there's a bottle there. That really, really is very helpful. So I want to say this before we end. If you feel these ways, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence with this episode, because I do want to talk about what to do when there are times that things need to be escalated. So this is for the partners of, the spouses of, the family members of. But if you feel like you're having persistent thoughts of harming yourself or somebody else, or you're having frightening rage episodes for yourself or your partner's, like, whoa, I want you to call 988 in the United States, your local 911, or go to the nearest emergency room. Do it. Do it. Don't think about it. If you are having persistent thoughts of hurting yourself or someone else, go to the emergency room. Go do it. Go do it. You will be seen. There are people there who will take care of you. Don't be afraid of that. Get in the car and go. If you're feeling like rageful, and then you've got insomnia, you're not sleeping for more than 2 nights of no sleep, or you're having like, this is crazy, I'm having crazy thoughts. It could be a little bit of a psychosis going on, like you're hallucinating, you're hearing things, you're seeing things, someone's telling you to do things. You need an urgent psychiatric evaluation. Then you have to consider, an inpatient mother-baby unit, if that's available. We have it here in Chicago, but you do need a psych eval. No shame. No shame. There's a lot going on in your body, and sometimes our brains do funky, weird things that we've never experienced before. So if you're having this rage, anger, and you have not been sleeping for more than 2 nights, massive red flag there. If your anger is undermining your bonding with the baby, or you're being able to take care of the infant, I would say get in to see a therapist, fast track therapy, and get a medication consult. So that often is very helpful. So get with a therapist who specializes in postpartum, and get with either your primary care or get an appointment with a psychiatrist. Let's talk about taking an antidepressant or something that could help you. There's much, much relief for you. You just don't know it yet. There's much relief ahead of you. Okay. Yeah. Talk to your family members, your partner about safety planning. When do you want me to step in? Or sometimes it's like, I can't think because of the mental labor of the woman, the mom. Just step in. You take a break. I got the baby. We're good.
As long as you have that open dialogue, that person knows they're greenlit to be that person, to be that relief person any moment, right?
And I had it with my second, and it made a huge difference. So I made sure when the baby had the last feeding, it was a little early for me to be going to bed, but it was like, I think I was in the last feeding at like 8. Yeah. And I went upstairs and went to bed because I knew that I wouldn't have to wake up again until like 2 or 3 a.m. because she would be given a bottle at 4 hours later at midnight. So somebody took the midnight feeding, which was massive for me. I think she was going like every 4 hours. It was massive. So And so I got to sleep until like 3 or 4 in the morning. I was all engorged. My breasts were full. I didn't care. I slept. So I got like 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Game changing with that second baby. I didn't have anything.
Interesting.
It was also the second time I knew how to handle it. And I also told myself, I'm getting on an antidepressant. I'm going to talk to my doctor. I talked to my gynae about it, my OB gynae about it. And we knew that was a plan. I didn't need it because I got my sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, for all of you, I hope that this is helpful. This is something I wanted to talk about to start off the series because postpartum rage, there's so much shame around it. And we're not talking about it enough. And we need to dismantle this and start talking openly about that you're human, you're going through something massive. It's a wonderful time, yes. It's a happy time, yes. And for those of you who only had that, I'm jealous of you. And that is wonderful. But many, many, many of us have not had, it has not been idyllic and it's been hard. And maybe we didn't have a clinical diagnosis of a depression or an anxiety, but we had the blues and there were severe blues. This is for you. And if you think that this will be helpful, share this episode with someone who's going through it right now and maybe it can help them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the first in a series of about 10 that we're doing. Okay. Rate and review the podcast, 5 stars, and share it with someone who you think would benefit from this episode. All right. Mad love to all of you. Till next time.